Eric Herner. I was watching Ron Miscavige's podcast recently, and he mentioned a policy document of Ron Hubbard's called The Responsibility of Leaders, in which Hubbard cites examples of tactics a leader needs to master, including violence, murder, rape, child abuse, and so on. He apparently states that a leader should have subordinates under him who are willing to do illegal things and not tell the leader, so as not to compromise him. One example is murder, another blackmail, he says, and then asserts that David Miscavige used this policy letter as his Bible, finding Hubbard stating that ruthlessness is an important trait for a leader to have. Firstly, this seems a very Hitler-esque kind of view of leadership, and what is also Hitler-esque is the lack of reciprocity. The subordinate must be prepared to risk all for the leader, but the leadership takes no responsibility for any personal trouble the subordinate may incur. If this is really so, it is a very destructive view of management and leadership, and good for anyone interested in Scientology to be very clear about. I'd appreciate your thoughts on this. Well, Eric, basically everything you said in your question is 100% true. There is an issue. It is called the responsibility of leaders, and it is a policy letter Hubbard wrote to get people to back him up and to, Hubbard explained the relationship as a kind of codependent relationship, though. He said that, when you have people who rely on a person who has power, Hubbard made an analogy of power being something you would dish out or that you could hand out to people or parcel out bits of your power to them so they can get various things done. And then that person, is close to a power, relies on that power, borrows from that power, and therefore gets more respect, admiration, that sort of thing. But it's dangerous. Hubbard makes it very clear that it's dangerous to be close to a person who has power if that person who has the power doesn't understand how to allocate it or use it. Yes, in your question you said, it seems like there's not a lot of reciprocity. There's not. It's a little bit. But the general idea is protect the person who has the power. So the whole issue really becomes a kind of manual for how to be a cult leader or a cult member. There is cult leader, stuff in there because it's advice to people who have power. So the responsibility of leaders is supposed to be Hubbard talking about how to be in a leadership position. But it really is all about how your juniors are supposed to take care of all this stuff and give you plausible deniability and feed you and support you and care for you so that you can get your job done. And that's kind of how the issue breaks down. And it really is that pretty, and he makes a lot of comparisons in the issue to Simón Bolívar and his struggle to free South America from the rulership of Spain back in the day, and he uses Bolivar as an example of how to do it wrong and what he should have done. And Hubbard's examples of what Bolivar should have done are actually far more ruthless and cutthroat and cold-blooded than anything Bolivar ever took part in or engaged in. It's very Machiavellian, actually. So that's kind of an interesting object lesson in itself. When I was in Scientology, we read this stuff, but, when you're a cult follower, your mindset is so different from when you're a critical thinker or objective person looking in on something. When you're part of it, you have deified this leader. So it makes complete sense to you that you should be the one taking the blows and you should be the one doing things behind the scenes to protect the powerful person because that's your job because you deify this person. So I guess in a way, if there's any kind of reciprocity, it's sort of viewed that way. But it's a wrong view, of course, right? And it's quite destructive. Mike Rinder actually did an article on this also, which I'll link to in the description section below on the video here, where he broke this down also. This has definitely been territory that has been talked about by critics, and it's definitely a window into Hubbard's view of how people should be treating him, and it's quite an interesting one. So that's what I have to say about that.